Hi, 6th grade students, Miss Sackett here. Today I'm going to be working with you on forces and talking a little bit more about how we identify forces acting on different objects. So today we're going to be working through a few things together, and then you're going to do a practice on a Google form where you can see right away if you get the answers right or wrong. Now what's great about these videos is you can watch them over again if you need to. Now not only am I working with this sheet of paper, but because I want to have notes on this, I also have my own scratch sheet of paper, which I would recommend having during this video so you can write this stuff down as well. So looking back at this sheet, it says, what are the two forces acting on the car? Now the first thing we want to do is we want to remind ourselves, what are the four things we have to have when talking about forces acting on something? Now when we talk about that, we have to have a who, we have to have a what. Now the what is always either a push or a pull on something. Okay, so again, the what is the push or the pull. So a who, a what, an object that's being pushed or pulled, and then we need to know where, so direction. So we need to know where that object then is going. So when we look through these pictures, we're looking at these four things and trying to answer those questions. Now it even told us there are two forces acting on the car. Now when we look at this picture, I think force number one is pretty easy to figure out. Now we already know what our object is, and the object is the car. Okay, so that we already know. But we have to figure out what is actually forcing the car to go in a direction. Now I can see there is something acting on this car, and that would be a child. So force one is, so we're going to write that out. I'm going to say force, sorry you can't see that, force one is, now my first is who. Now again, that who is what is acting on this. Who is acting on this? So the who is the child. So force one is child. Okay, the what is that push or pull. So is the child pushing the car or pulling the car? And we can see from this picture that they are pushing. So we're going to say force one is child pushing. Now we know the object because it was in the picture. The object is our car. And the little trickier one is, where is that car going? So that child is pushing the car, and we need to now know where. So in what direction? So when I look at this, it even gives us an arrow. And then it told us that the direction is west. So now we know that the child is pushing the car west. Okay, it's as simple as that. Now, there is a second force acting on this car, which is a little trickier, but it's a force that acts on all things on Earth, all things. It's the reason we are pulled to the ground and we're not floating everywhere. So again, that would be gravity. So when we look at our picture, we now know that force 2 is. So I'm going to write that out. So I have force 2 is. Now the first thing I have to answer is the who, which I said is that thing that pulls all of us to the ground, which is gravity. Now I helped you out because I said it multiple times. Gravity does not push us up, and it does not push us down. It actually pulls us. So gravity pulls. Now I want to look back at that picture because maybe I forgot. This picture tells us what that object is, which is the car. And gravity pulls the car, and gravity always pulls in the same direction. Gravity pulls us to the center of the earth, which is down. So gravity pulls car down. Okay, so picture one is done. We've answered both of the questions. When I look back at this, I can now very easily say that force one is child pushing car west, and force 2 is gravity pulling car down. Okay, now I'm hoping you are understanding this a little bit. We're going to look at this next one and do it together as well. So here we go. Now this time there are three forces acting on a wagon's motion. So again, it says, what are the three forces acting on the wagon's motion? Now when we look at this picture, it gives us a lot of information. So these pictures are super, super important. Now it does not matter what order we do this in. So let's just start with force one. And let's start with Jerry right here, okay? Now we know what our object is. It's always going to tell us in the question. So our object is the wagon. Now again, we have the same 4 parts that we have to answer. So I'm going to go back to my scratch sheet of paper. This time, this is a new picture, so I have force 1 is. Now, again, the first thing we have to answer is that who. And we decided our first who is going to be Jerry. So our who is Jerry. The next thing we have to decide is that what. Now the what is the push or pull. So is Jerry pushing? Is he pushing or is he pulling that wagon? Now again, I know it's a wagon because in the directions it says what are the 3 forces acting on the wagon's motion. Now looking at this picture, I can tell that Jerry is pushing the wagon. So force 1 is Jerry pushing. And I know what the object is. The object is the wagon. Now I have to decide what direction, so where that wagon is going. So when I look at this, it even gives me an arrow and it tells me the direction that wagon is going. So that wagon is going right. So now I'm going to say force 1 is Jerry pushing wagon right. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you, and then your Google form is going to be the 3rd force on this picture. So your Google form is going to be answering this picture right here. Sorry, I'm pointing at the picture, which isn't helping you, so I'm going to circle it. Now, force 2, I'm going to do force 2 is the tricky one, because I think this is tricky because it's not in the picture. Now, always acting on everything. These people are not floating in the air, which means, and the wagon is not floating, which means gravity is acting on this object. So force 2 is, I gotta write that down, F2, force 2 is our who is gravity. Now, gravity does the same thing. Gravity always pulls, always. So gravity pulls. And what is our object? Our object stays the same, wagon. And gravity always pulls in the same direction. Always. Always down. So gravity pulls wagon down. Okay, so those are our 2 forces. Now there are 3. So when I look back at this picture, there are actually 3 forces. So the first force we went with was Jerry. And we said Jerry is pushing the wagon right. The second force we decided was that gravity was pulling the wagon down, and now it is up to you to answer this Google form and tell me the 3rd force. Okay, now the 3rd force is not going to be Jerry and it is not going to be gravity. So I just gave you the answer to number 1 on your Google form. If you still have questions or you need help, please rewatch this video. Please email myself, Miss Betty, or Miss Griffin Boyle. We miss you all very much. I hope you have enjoyed this video and I will hopefully see you all soon. Good luck on the Google form.